So our next speaker is Sophia. I just want to, I'm not going to give a full introduction, but I do want to say, Sophia is one of the brains behind I'm a Scientist, Get Me Out of Here, which is the best media training I've ever done. So basically, you spend 2 weeks live chatting with groups of school children over the internet about your research, and you have to speak in language that they understand. And you have to do it very fast because there's 20 of them in a classroom talking to one scientist at a time, I think, isn't it? Yeah. And that has been better for me in terms of learning to articulate what I do in simple terms than anything else I do. So if you are a scientist, it's beyond now just science, isn't it? I think you...
There's now, I'm an engineer getting out of here as well, and there's various, and they have themed zones, so sometimes they'll have social scientists or whatever who are relevant to the theme.
But she's not going to talk about that, she's going to talk about what she's done since then. So I'll hand over to you. This microphone, we're going to use that one.
I'll use this one. Can you, there's no clock at the back, can you like wait one minute to go? So is it this one that's working? Can everyone hear me? Hello! Thank you. So yeah, my name is Sophia. I used to run I'm a Scientist, Get Me Out Here, and now at the moment I'm running a project called Nappy Science Gap. Now, you will look quite young to be honest, but hands up if you've got children. Okay, so somebody, and nurse, you just try and kind of imagine. When you have your first child, nothing can be paid for it, because no matter how competent and successful kind of grown up you think you are, suddenly you have like a tiny person completely dependent on you for everything from like food and cleaning to, you know, their mental health for the rest of their life. And well, that's how it feels, and it's pretty, it's pretty kind of overwhelmingly terrifying. And when I was having this experience, one of the things I kind of clung to, you start clinging to things, I started to use reusable cloth nappies because I'm hippie. And I was looking up information on the internet about how to wash my cloth nappies, and everywhere I came across had kind of contradictory information. There were all these different websites telling me how to wash them very trenchantly. This is the only way to do it, this is what you need to know. But they all disagreed with each other. And I was like, well, these things can't all be right. It must be possible to kind of do some science and work out which one is right. So as I'm, you know, lying on the sofa feeding a 2-month-old baby for hours on end and stuff, I kind of kept thinking about this, and because my background's in science engagement, I was like, what we should do is, I should come up with some public engagement projects about this, and I should get people who usually, science, this isn't a question that science is going to start kind of investigating on its own. They're not sitting there going, oh, I wonder how we can help advise people on washing their cloth nappies. But it really matters to all these parents who are using cloth nappies. It would make a great citizen science project, I thought. Because I don't know if you're familiar with citizen science, I'm sure you've heard the term, but a lot of the time, citizen science projects are kind of using citizens as data monkeys. And that's okay if people want to get involved in that. A lot of people do things like Galaxy Zoo, and they find it a fun kind of hobby and they feel that they're contributing to science, and that's great. But it's not, I felt, really putting citizens in charge. It's not truly citizen science. It's scientist science that the citizens are doing some processing for them. But I thought, well, it would be possible to kind of set up projects where actually the citizens were in charge, and the citizens were coming up with their own questions and what were the things that mattered to them. And so that's what I did. So I applied to Wellcome, and they thought it was a great idea, and they gave me some money. And so I set up a Facebook group. Because if any of you who have used cloth nappies, I know there's only a few of you who've got children, and the number that use cloth nappies might be even smaller, but there are a lot of nappy groups on Facebook. It's one of those things that until you start entering this world, you don't realise it's there. But then you start realising, actually, there's there's like dozens of Facebook groups devoted to cloth nappies, and there's thousands upon thousands of people who are in there every day, buying and selling cloth nappies, getting advice from each other, discussing cloth nappies. It's like a whole world. So I set up a Facebook group called Nappy Science Gang, and I sort of posted in several Nappy Facebook groups about it and invited people to join. People started joining, and I got them talking about what are the questions you would like scientific answers to. And over the course of almost a year, the group they discussed it at length. They decided on 3 questions that were their sort of highest priorities. And then they designed experiments to answer each of those 3 questions as best they could. We consulted with lots of scientists, we had weekly live chats with scientists. When the groups had come up with rough protocols, we sent them all to some actual scientists to give us feedback on the protocols as a form of kind of peer review. And then the group took on board what the scientists had said and they changed their protocols. And then the group ran the experiments. So, for example, one of the experiments we did was we were looking at what's the best detergent to use to wash your cloth nappies. We got lots of volunteers. We sent them each an experiment pack with sachets of mystery detergent. And the volunteers washed their nappies. So for 3 successive normal nappy washes that they did, they used each of the mystery detergents. And then afterwards they rated them for smell and stains and apparent cleanliness. And they also swabbed the nappies and sent the swabs off to a microbiology lab where they were tested. So it was pretty in-depth science, actually, you know. Although obviously, you know, our resources were limited and we couldn't kind of test every variation. We also, in another experiment, we washed test loads of nappies at different temperatures 100 times each to see what happened to your nappies after being washed at that temperature. And in another experiment, we collected some nappies that were smelling and having problems. We kind of put the call out across Nappy World, and we collected the sort of most problem nappies we could, and we sent them to, because there was a persistent myth in cloth Nappy World that the greatest danger was detergent buildup. And you were scarred against detergent buildup by only using a very small quantity of detergents to wash your nappies. Which kind of seemed crazy to us because nappies have got poo in, right? They're kind of the smelliest, the dirtiest thing you're ever going to wash in your life. So we found these problem nappies, we got them tested in a lab very thoroughly, and we found no evidence of detergent buildup in these nappies. So we thought we'd kind of put to bed the detergent buildup theory, but it staggers on because some people aren't amenable to evidence, it appears. So there are limits to what we can achieve with any kind of public engagement project. But these are the kind of experiments we did. In the course of our discussions and our experiments, one of the things that came up a lot was people discussing using bio versus non-bio detergent. And another persistent myth in the cloth nappy world was that you must only use non-bio because there's a high risk of your small child being allergic to bio and causing skin irritation. And the NHS, in fact, up until that point, advised people not to use bio-detergents on baby items, but to stick to non-bio detergent. But one of our members of our group had a real bee in her bonnet about this, because she was American originally, and she was like, there's no such thing as non-bio in America. All detergents, pretty much all detergents have enzymes in there. How come bio is really likely to give you skin irritation if you're in the UK, but it doesn't in America? So she found a review paper, a scientific review paper, which concluded that bio had no more chance of causing skin irritations. That the thing that most caused skin irritations in detergent was perfumes, and there are perfumes in bio detergent as well as in non-bio detergent. So, and she kept banging on about this, and one of our scientists that we were working with, he was like, well, do you know what, I've never really questioned this, but why does the NHS give that advice? So he just wrote a letter to the NHS Choices website administrator and said, can you tell me what evidence this is based on? It says on your website to only use non-bio for baby items. Can you tell me what evidence it's based on? The NHS Choices website, bless them, investigated, and they talked to a professor of evidence-based dermatology at the University of Nottingham, whose name escapes me. And he said, no evidence at all. There's absolutely no reason to avoid bio-detergents with baby items, or indeed for anyone. And so the NHS changed their advice. And I mean, all we did was write a letter, but everybody in public engagement world seems to think this is a massive success of that project. And so write letters to government departments and stuff, that's my advice. But I mean, it is amazing that something so simple can actually change it. So those are the kind of things that we did. Some things we learned by doing all this was that it's actually very hard to get a group of volunteers with little science training to design experiments. I mean, I don't have a PhD. I have an undergrad degree in science, but you know, I spent my life up until that point, you know, doing O levels and A levels and a science degree. It kind of seemed kind of obvious to me how, in a way, how you would go about constructing experiments and setting research questions and stuff. But for people who've not done it before, it's not that obvious. So the one thing we found was it's hard to get volunteers to do these things. You need to provide a lot of scaffolding and a lot of structure. And that's not cheating, you know. You can be user-led, but be providing structure and scaffolding for decision-making and working like that. It's also hard to do things based on a Facebook group, because if you ask easy questions, everyone contributes. You ask kind of, oh, what's your washing machine do you use? You know, you'll get 100 people replying to that thread. It's easy. But you ask a more difficult question, and people kind of look at it and think, oh, that seems difficult. Oh, look, my brother's wedding pictures, I'll look at them instead. You know, Facebook's full of distractions. If you had people in a room and could sit them down at a table and say, right, your table's task is this, and I'll come back in half an hour and you can give me some answers. You know, it's harder to do that, and you have to kind of nudge people into it, and you have to do things that encourage the Facebook algorithm to show people your posts, you know. So you've got to put in lots of posts that they will respond to, so that then other posts kind of they're more likely to see them. And when we were doing the experiments, we were sending people out, these experiment packs, we were sending people out the test nappies that people had to wash 20 times in their machine and then pass on to the next person in their team. And we had to do a lot of kind of nagging and pushing people, because people have got like their own lives, you know, and it's not like the #1 priority to them that they should do their bit of the experiment. It's their priority to keep their children fed and you know, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we had to do a lot of nagging. So citizen science doesn't necessarily save you lots of time and energy. It just means you're doing different. You're spending your time and energy on something different. And people are very competitive as well. So one of the things that really helped, at one point everyone was being really slow in doing their nappy washing and sending their nappies on. And then we introduced prizes of a book. If you got your nappy washes done in 1 week and sent off to the next person, then we sent you a book, you know, that cost like $5.99 or something. Suddenly everyone was getting their nappy washes done in a week when it had taken them kind of 2 months before. So little prizes can make a big difference, and people are competitive. So that would be another tip we learned. And the final question really is what did the people who took part learn? Well, I think they got a great deal of learning about science and scientific terminology, and they discussed things back and forth, and they were introduced to a lot of things, and they had scientific conversations. Some of them obviously were people with the science training themselves, but some of them, you know, had none at all. And one of the things we asked, we did a survey at the end of the project for people who'd taken part, and one of the questions was, having taken part in this process, what do you think you've learned about designing experiments? And almost everybody's answer was, it's really hard. So I kind of think they've got a pretty good insight into science there, and how science works and what it's like. And that was a big part of the purpose of the project. So I think that's everything.
Let's open it for questions.
Thank you. Very interesting story. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. My question is regarding promoting the group. So, how did you find that? So, when you set up the Facebook group, did you send it to your friends that you knew that were interested in this topic, or how did you promote it? Because I've been involved in a project that required promotion. And I found myself in the situation of relying on other people to promote you to the key or to a target.
Well, I think it really helped that I was, although I'm a public engagement professional, I was also a member of the community that we were trying to engage, because I've been using cloth nappies. I was in lots of nappy groups on Facebook. I bought and sold nappies there, don't ask. And you know, I participated in seeking and giving advice in those groups. So I was a member of lots of groups, and I kind of knew how they worked. And before I even put in the application form, I posted in a couple of the more active groups. This is something I'm kind of thinking of doing. Do people think it would be a good idea? What kind of questions would you want to pursue? So I'd already got some kind of interest and buy-in before we even started. And then when I set up the group, I actually did to set up a group in Facebook, you have to put some members in it. You can't just set it up with no members. So I did actually put people who I knew personally who use cloth nappies in, like 5 of them, you know. And then I started, then I put these posts in some of the other groups, and I asked, you know, I gave a link and I suggested people join the group. And they came in kind of dribs and drabs. And over time, I mean, by the time we were doing the experiments and stuff, we had about 500 members in the group. And actually, since then, we're now at nearly 2,000 members, because as the results came out and all this kind of thing, people were posting stuff some of the content that we produced for our website in other groups, and people were reading about it and coming, and people, after the NHS advice thing changed, we got a blog post in the Guardian website about that, and lots of people joined following that. But yeah, it's where are the groups where people that you're trying to reach are, and those are the routes to use it. And it's happened much more kind of organically, with, I guess, people are inviting their friends, and also people are posting things on other groups. Someone will ask a question on another group, and someone will say, oh, well, Nappy Science Camp, they're doing. Someone will go, oh, what's Nappy Science Camp, they're doing.
Any other questions?
Does that answer the question?
One over here, and I've definitely got one.
Thank you. I wondered if you had any concerns regarding the barriers that doing your project by social media puts up, because I assume, for example, that people would need written English to be able to engage with the project, need access and the ability to use technology to engage with the project. It must restrict your sample.
Yes, and that's certainly the case. But at the end of the day, every project is only going to reach some people, and every project can't reach everybody, you know. And I think I've got a larger grant application in now to welcome for a kind of Nappy Science Camp Phase 2, where we tackle other areas of parenting. And in that, I definitely want to deliberately work with some groups that are maybe not Facebook-based, but are sort of geographical groups that are working with underprivileged mums, or, you know, immigrant communities or whatever. Because, yeah, it would be really useful to reach those communities as well. But in the first sort of proof of concept projects, it's not something we could do, you know. And because it's Facebook and because it's online, actually you're reaching a lot of people. Like, a lot of people use Facebook that would never use Twitter or Instagram or something. You know? I mean, my mum's on Facebook, unfortunately. And, you know, we've got members who are like on the Shetland Islands, and we've got members who are disabled and don't leave the house very much, you know. So in some ways it is accessible to, you know, to some groups, but every medium you choose is not accessible.
So, any more questions over here? Oh, there's one over here. So I was wondering if you could tell us about your BuzzFeed listicle thing.
Yes, is there a way to get it up?
Yes.
I don't know if there's much benefit to doing that. You won't be able to reach it just now, but I did the project evaluation in like February, and I really meant to do a sort of accessible summary of the evaluation, because normally you know you spend weeks writing the evaluation report, and then about 2 people read it, and it's kind of, unless it gets out there more, you know, there's not really much point in having written it, really. I mean, there's a point in evaluating, but so what I did was I wrote it's there. So this is our website. This is so what I did was, so what I intended to do was to write this just a week or so after I'd finished my evaluation report. But actually, it took me like 7 months to write it, to go around to write it. But I did move house in between, and I had a 3-year-old child. So, but yeah, so I wrote a snappy and amusing summary of the things we found out doing the project. Some of these are points that that you find in the evaluation report. Some of them are just interesting things we thought were interesting that we found out on the way. And so I posted this. It's been read kind of thousands of times, which is like a lot more times than any evaluation report written has been read. And I put at the bottom, if you want to see the full evaluation report, then email me and I'll let you know. And I've had about 30 people email me asking for the full evaluation report. So I feel like this evaluation, having put the time in to write this and make it funny and interesting, has meant that evaluation has been a lot more useful than it would be otherwise, because a lot more people have seen it than would have done otherwise. And actually, someone who's a member of the group works in a university, works at Bristol Uni, and she messaged me yesterday to say she'd been in a meeting discussing something, and someone had said, "Oh, have you heard of that funny little Nappy project? Have you seen their BuzzFeed-style evaluation thing? We should be doing that." And I was like, "Well, that's impact." That's what I was trying to do.
Last question.
Oh yeah, it's just, yes, thank you. Very interesting. I just wanted to know or ask a question about intergenerational. And as a recipient of cloth nappies in the 50s, the thing that one remembers most is the steam, the boiling, the smell, and the constant artifact on the stove which is boiling them. So I was just wondering about that, because it was so domestic and so gendered, and women who were having to juggle going to work in whatever circumstances. With Ben Hartwell, my mum did anyway, she's 91 now. I just wondered how far you access that sort of generation for whom it was a living nightmare.
Not really, to be honest, because I think people. So I mean, modern cloth nappies are quite different to the old terry. I mean, some people still use terry squares, but modern cloth nappies are quite different to that. And for a start, you can't oil wash them because they've got polyurethane layers and stuff, and you destroy them. So these days you put them in the washing machine, and it's free washing machine. Yeah. And I guess people who used to use cloth nappies in the old days they're not presently on Facebook using the cloth nappy groups and buying and selling and giving each other nappy advice and stuff. So we didn't have a lot of older members joining the group. That answers the question. But it is still very gendered. I made a great effort at the beginning to always say parents and parents willing to do. There's about 5 members of the group who are men, and out of nearly 2,000. So it is still a very gendered kind of activity. Although in my house, we had a rule that my partner is a stay-at-home dad, and we had a rule that I was top end and he was bottom end. So he did all the nappy changes, and quite a few people have said in conversations with the group that they do that, but somehow, even when the bloke is changing the nappies, it's still the mum who kind of buys them and is involved in the nappy groups and stuff. I'm not really sure why that is, but maybe those groups feel like female spaces and fathers don't feel as welcome. I don't know. But
It's an interesting thing.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, Carl.